Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year 2022. In this video, because it's the new year, I decided to reflect a little bit on some of the lessons that I've learned. These are things that I've kind of just figured out over time for myself, or I read them somewhere and I really resonated with them. And these are all things that I've just observed about the way I like to live my life. So let's just get straight right into it. The first one, and I guess the thing that's the most important for me, is that it's so important to do things that are important for you. When you make a decision, it's important to understand whether you're making this decision because you want to make this decision or whether you feel like you're getting some kind of pressure from somewhere else to make this decision. And this pressure could come from your parents, friends, society, your teachers, whoever. It doesn't matter. I believe that you should do things because you want to do them, not because you have to do them. Sometimes the want and the have, they end up combining, and that's fine. But when you continuously decide on what you want to do and you actually do it and you only do things you actually want to do, that's how you build up your confidence over time. The second one is the question, would I still do this if I were alone in the world? Sometimes we do things without realizing that we're doing them because of some kind of outside pressure. And these things could be anything from buying a certain phone or choosing a certain career path. A lot of times we don't actually intend to give in to peer pressure, but it just unconsciously happens because it feels so natural. It feels like everyone's doing it. It's just the natural thing to do, and we don't feel like we're being pressured to do it. That's why every now and then I try to step back and ask myself, would I still do this thing if I were alone in the world? If no one else was there, no one else mattered, would I still do the same thing or not? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. You always need to know whether the things that you're doing are things that you're personally aligned with or not. And you should try to do more things that you're personally aligned with and less things that you're really not aligned with. The third one is that you're not behind in life. Actually, there's no concept of being ahead or behind because everyone's going through their own journey. And there are actually multiple different journeys in life. There are your finances, your career, your love life, your mental health, your confidence. You get the point. There's multiple different journeys that everyone's going through. And it's important to remind yourself that, you're going through your own set of journeys and everyone else is going through their own set of journeys. And there's no concept of being ahead or behind. You're just exactly where you're supposed to be. The next one is focus on the opportunities rather than the blockers. I don't know where I read this, but it went something like, when you're skiing, if you focus on the trees, you're gonna go hit a tree. But if you focus on the gaps between the trees, you're gonna get through those gaps. The same thing applies when you're driving in traffic in India as well. If you focus on the cars, you're gonna crash into a car. But if you focus on the road and the gaps between the cars, you're gonna get through. This applies to life as well. Don't focus on the blockers. Focus on the opportunities. Focus on the gaps. And that's where you're going to go through. The next one is study something you actually like studying. If you choose to study something you don't really like just because it's lucrative, what's going to happen is because you don't actually enjoy it, you're going to put a glass ceiling for yourself. You'll yourself stop yourself from working at a world-class level because you truly don't want to. You don't align with it, and you're gonna stop yourself from doing great things. You'll be scared to achieve at a high level because you're scared that there's no way back after that. It's too much commitment. But if you study something that you actually enjoy, you'll push yourself. Your passion will speak for itself, and that's what's going to help you get opportunities later on. What you actually studied is not as important as how well you spent your time. So I spent 4 years studying computer science in my bachelor's. It wasn't a complete waste of time, but I was just not that passionate about it. I'm not that big a coder, and I ended up spending most of my time doing photography, making videos, doing marketing related things. And what ended up happening was that I always wished that I could spend more time doing the things that I actually truly enjoyed. But then there was all these pressures of, getting good grades and not failing and all of those things. And I just felt like there was a lack of alignment somewhere. And that caused me a lot of stress. But when I finally started studying marketing at HEC Paris, I had a huge change in my outlook. For the first time in my life, I was actually studying something that I truly enjoyed. And because of that, I was way more engaged in my classes, just in my extracurriculars. That's actually how this YouTube channel came along as well. The next one is to figure out what you want to do, you need to do a lot of things. I actually made a video on this a few months ago and I'll link it somewhere over here. But the idea is that you need to do a lot of different things and then reflect on them to kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like, and then do more of the things that you like. That way you can pretty much just like repeat the process until you fine tune your compass and then you figure out which direction you want to head in. The next one is that you don't have to have your love life all figured out. And most people at my age don't actually. So 25 is a weird age because there are some people who are like married and even might have kids. Then there's other people who are still studying, and then there's people who are still living at home with their parents, and then there's other people who are living alone. There's like it's a whole mix, It's a complete mix. Again, back to the same point about like everyone has their own journey. Don't feel left out. You're just following your path. The right person will come into and stay in your life when the time is right. Until then, focus on building yourself up so that you can welcome them with open arms when they do. Also, it's just nicer when you've got yourself all figured out. Like you have such better relationships, like friendships and romantic relationships, when you figured yourself out. The next one, which I think is actually really important, is you need to set boundaries and you need to assert those boundaries. So you should define for yourself what you are and what you're not comfortable with for every specific person that you interact with. And then you should assert those boundaries. Because if you don't yourself define the limits of what you're comfortable with, others will define those limits for you, and you don't want that. Setting and asserting boundaries is also what grows your self-confidence and self-esteem, while letting people cross those boundaries erodes your self-confidence and self-esteem. Build anchors from which you can then explore. One of the main functions of close relationships and support systems is that they provide you with an anchor where you feel secure, and then from there you can confidently explore the world and take risks. But aside from close relationships, there's also other ways of building your anchors. They can be your routines and also your hobbies. The idea is that if some parts of your life are predictable and consistent, you'll be more confident to branch out and take risks and do things that are not predictable and not consistent. I learned this when I was in Los Angeles, and in the very beginning of my time there, I had no close relationships there. I was all by myself. So I set these anchors for myself by defining my favorite cafes, my favorite drinks, my favorite bars, my favorite places to go biking and skateboarding. So I kind of like had a very fixed routine of my week, and that made me feel really comfortable and confident. And then I branched out and made close relationships after that. The next one is that consistency is key. Small efforts, but done consistently, will add up and might even compound over time. It's better to do a little bit consistently rather than do a lot but like once in a while. I feel like I truly learned this while building this YouTube channel. So for the longest time, I was making videos and putting them up on this channel. Like you can go back to my oldest videos and see what they were. They're still there. But I wasn't making videos that were consistent. I was like, things were all over the place. I was not being regular, but I also didn't want to be at the time, so that's kind of fine. But it was only after I started consistently putting out videos every week on consistent topics, that's when my channel actually started growing a lot. And recently, I know that I haven't been so consistent as I was before, and I can see that my channel is not growing as much as it was when I was being consistent earlier. The next one is that one way of building trust with yourself and also with others is to set goals and actually go and achieve them, and then repeat it again and again. Now, when I say goals, they don't really have to be like high goals or like hard to reach goals. They can be as simple as, today I'm gonna go do my groceries and do my laundry, and then actually go do your groceries and do your laundry instead of getting lazy about it. Start small and then build your way up. The idea is that when you define your goals and objectives and follow through with them and actually go and do them, you'll trust yourself more. You'll know that when you say that you're gonna do something, you'll actually go and do it. And once that happens, you'll be way more comfortable making commitments to yourself and also with others. You should say what you do and do what you say. That's how you build trust with others, but also with yourself. Learn to network and connect with people as early as you can. Your knowledge and your skills will take you pretty far, but your network and connections are gonna take you even further. I feel like I only truly got the value of this once I came to business school at HEC. At business school, there's a big push on networking, and for good reason. A good network brings with it great opportunities. Like not just in terms of jobs and stuff, but also like opportunities to learn and grow. For me, a network means having people to learn together with. It means having people that you can bring value to and people that bring value to you, and they may not even necessarily be the same people every time. A lot of people think that networking is like writing to people on LinkedIn and asking for referrals, or attending these networking events and having fake conversations with people. Like, okay, that's one style of networking, but that's not really my style of networking. My kind of networking is essentially finding like-minded people and then figuring out ways that I can help them. Essentially just providing value to people and then trusting that value is going to come back to me at some point sooner or later. I will make an entirely separate video on this topic of networking because I think it's really important. So you should hit that subscribe button to stay updated when I do that. The next one, and this is a pretty big one and maybe a bit of a controversial one as well, and it's that spending money on material things is not necessarily bad all the time. Okay, so I feel like material things generally get a bad rap sometimes. Like people go all about experiences are better than things and so on. And yeah, while I do agree in a lot of cases that's true, but I also think that material things and spending money on material things is not always bad. Look, I love buying things like gadgets, nice clothes, things for my house, all of that stuff, like, but mostly gadgets and camera and music stuff. A nice camera that allows you to take even nicer photos can give you a really, really great experience and can allow you to connect with other people that take nice photos. Like that's what happened to me back in 2014 in Manipal. Like my parents bought me my first DSLR and that allowed me to connect with other photographers on campus and that gave me so many great experiences. Or like my iPhone, for instance. Like I bought that phone 3 years ago and it has served me really, really well. I love the camera on it. I love how it doesn't get in my way. It just makes me more productive and that makes me more happy. And so, yeah, I love having that iPhone. I also genuinely really like Apple and I actually love using that phone. Like every time I use it, I feel happy that, yeah, it's a great phone. Also, I've heard this on Ali Abdal's channel and it's something that I've always followed in my life anyway, which is that most of the things that I buy are like things that allow me to do things that I would not otherwise be able to do. Like for example, a few months ago, I could either buy a new electric guitar or I could buy a new camera. And I decided to buy a new electric guitar because I had no electric guitar. My other guitar was an acoustic one and I really wanted to get into playing the electric guitar. Whereas I already have a camera, even though it's a really old one, but I still have a camera. So I'd rather buy something that allows me to do something new. But I think what's more important with material things is why you're actually buying them. Is it actually going to be useful for you and make your life easier? Is it something that you genuinely want and will make you actually happier if you have it? Are you getting something because you want it, or are you getting something because you want to keep up with society or with your friends? Even with things like nice clothes and luxury items even, like it's okay to want those things, I think. But the key is to understand why you want them. Like, is it because you yourself really want them, or is it because you want to keep up with someone or a group of people or society? That brings me to my next point, which is do things more mindfully. Knowing why you're doing something is sometimes more important than what you're doing. Even though I just spoke about this in the context of material things, I feel like it applies to anything else that you're doing in life as well. Always know your intentions, and the intention that you tell to yourself is not always the real intention, or like the intention that you tell others is not always the real intention. Get to the real intention. Ask yourself, why am I actually doing this? Sometimes you're gonna make wrong decisions and that is okay. As long as you're making the best decision that you can make with the information that you have at that point of time, it's alright if you made a bad decision that you realize later on. There's a great article on Farnham Street that talks about how to make good decisions. I'm gonna link it in the description below. Sometimes you lose money and it's okay. The pain of losing money is always greater than the joy of gaining the same amount of money. The way I look at it is that when you're carrying a full bucket of water from one point to another, you're bound to spill some water here and there. Like it's important to look at the bucket that you carried rather than the little bit of water that you spilled here and there. The last one for this video is that there are ups and downs to every friendship or relationship. No relationship is gonna be consistent over a long period of time. Sometimes you'll be really close to people and then suddenly you'll see yourself not talking to each other all that much anymore. And then you might drift apart. And then a few months or like a year or 3 years later, you'll get back together and you'll start talking to each other again and become good friends. Like I've seen that a lot of friendships and relationships just generally go like this. Like there's ebbs and flows to them. Sometimes people have weak connections for years and then suddenly you're best friends. So I try not to jump to conclusions and judge people just because we stop talking after talking to each other for a long time, because that's just part of life. You know, especially when you're an adult, sometimes certain friendships are a priority, other times those same friendships take a backseat. Like is just part of life. Alright, there you go guys. I don't normally make this kind of a video, and I think this ended up being a pretty long one as well. But I just wanted to collate some of the lessons that I've kind of learned over all these years. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you resonated with some of the points that I spoke about in this video, let me know down in the comments below. I'd be happy to have a discussion about it. And otherwise, see you guys in the next one.